Serious traffic jam on the first working day since the adoption of the two-way toll collection for the Lantau link. Tropical storm Hato expected to enter the northern part of the South China Sea tomorrow. And 10 American sailors missing after a collision between a US Navy destroyer and an oil tanker east of Singapore.
Good evening. Serious traffic congestion lasted for hours on the Lantau link this morning. This happened on the first working day since a two-way toll collection system was introduced for the trunk route to the airport and Tung Chung. As Caleb Leung reports, a number of toll booths were not in operation at the time of the congestion.
Today is the first working day since the Lantau link adopted the two-way toll collection system, and the traffic condition did not look good this morning. Airport-bound traffic almost came to a standstill. The long lines of vehicles stretched all the way from the toll plaza to Tsingma Bridge and even Tingkao Bridge. Starting at 8:35 a.m., Kowloon-bound lanes at the Tai Lam Tunnel had to be intermittently closed to reduce the number of vehicles heading for Tuen Mun Road and Tingkao Bridge. The measure lasted about 90 minutes. The Transport Department also urged the public going to the airport or Tung Chung to use non-road-based transportation such as the MTR. Traffic condition went back to normal at around midday. One major cause of the traffic congestion was an insufficient number of toll booths in operation at the Lantau Link Toll Plaza this morning. There are 13 such booths for the airport-bound traffic, but only 6 were in service, with 2 assigned for auto toll users. For the other 7 toll booths, works are being carried out on 5 of them, and the other 2 were left unused. Chen Henpen, who chairs the Legislative Council's transport panel, took a first-hand look at the traffic jam today. He urged the government to suspend the two-way collection system for the time being.
I cannot find any way that they can alleviate the traffic jam tomorrow. Although they recommended to open two more links tomorrow, but I think this still cannot solve the problem. And I hope they can persuade me to believe their arrangement.
Meanwhile, the government insists this evening that the opening of 2 extra booths should be enough to alleviate the situation.
Actually, the traffic flow to this morning was similar to what's happening in all other days. And it's within our estimation. We have already increased 2 manual toll links from 4 to 6. And according to the traffic flow and normal circumstances, it should have been able to cope with the demand.
The two-way collection system was introduced yesterday in line with the expected completion of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge late this year. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Well, the chief executive says the sentence reviews of 16 young political activists was not political persecution. Carrie Lam's comments come after thousands took to the streets yesterday to voice their discontent over court decisions to jail them. Lam made it clear that Department of Justice's application for sentence review was based on existing guidelines, and she had not interfered in its decision. The CE also expressed regret over the public comments and attacks against the judges, calling the comments irresponsible.
It's not a question of whether what I want to see as an outcome. It's a question of the rule of law. If people have offended and breached the law, then they have to accept the consequence. And this consequence is handed down by the court. And the court acts independently without any interference in arriving at that decision. I feel duty-bound as the chief executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region to make it very clear that there's absolutely no political interference, both in the prosecution, in the review of sentence, and in the judgments and rulings handed down by the Court of Appeal.
Well, the very hot weather warning is currently in force, and the observatory recorded a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius at various parts of the territory, including Kowloon City, Wong Tai Sin, Sham Shui Po, Happy Valley and Sha Tin. Other locations, including Cheng Kwan O, Kwun Tong, Chuen Wan and Shao Kei Wan, also saw the mercury hit 36 degrees. The observatory expects squally showers on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Taiwan is bracing for tropical storm Hato as it approaches the island. It is expected to bring rain to eastern and southern regions on the island. Well, US President Donald Trump is expected to announce a modest increase in American troops in Afghanistan tomorrow morning Hong Kong time. That's despite his reported reluctance to increase troop numbers over there. Jeff Tang has the story.
It's an issue that has vexed Donald Trump's two predecessors, George W. Bush and Barack Obama. But as the US marks its 16th year of involvement in the Afghan war, the question remains, should America send in more troops? Trump has already announced a strategic review shortly after he took office in January. But according to US officials, the outspoken leader has privately questioned whether sending over more troops is a wise move. But there's word that the businessman turned politician is eyeing Afghanistan's rich mineral reserves, estimated to be worth $1 trillion to help foot America's bill for the war. A senior White House official said the likeliest outcome is that Trump would agree to a modest addition to the current troop count of 8,400. Recently ousted White House strategic advisor Steve Bannon has argued for the withdrawal of all US forces, saying the war was not winnable. The US invaded Afghanistan in October 2001 after the September 11th attacks and overthrew the Islamist Taliban government in Kabul. The 16-year war stymied the Obama administration, which committed tens of thousands of extra troops to reverse Taliban gains. Then it committed to a troop drawdown, which was ultimately halted. Defense Secretary James Mattis, a retired four-star general of the Marine Corps, has argued that a U.S. military presence is needed to protect against the ongoing threat from Islamist militants. He had nothing to add about Trump's strategic review on Afghanistan.
The president has made a decision, as he said. He wants to be the one to announce it to the American people, so I'll stand silent until then. I'm very comfortable that the strategic process was sufficiently rigorous and did not go in with a preset condition in terms of what questions could be asked or what decisions would be made.
Mattis is in the Middle East and Eastern Europe this week to reassure allies that the US is committed to them despite mixed messages from Trump. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
Well, US and South Korean troops have kicked off their annual drills amid tension over North Korea's military and nuclear programs. The 11-day training exercise is a largely computer-simulated war games. This year, the exercise involves 17,500 American troops, down from 25,000 last year. Pyongyang views the exercises as a rehearsal for invasion and calls them a reckless move that could trigger the uncontrollable phase of a nuclear war. But South Korea's president says North Korea must not use the drills as a pretext for fresh provocation.
In Europe, Spanish police have expanded the search for a man who they consider to be the final member of the cell that carried out last week's attacks in Barcelona and a nearby town. The violence killed 15 people and wounded more than 120 others. Authorities believe the Moroccan suspect was behind the wheel of a van which left a trail of dead and injured on Barcelona's famous boulevard.
Police kept up the manhunt today for Europe's most wanted man. Officials say he is Yunus Abu Yaqub, a 22-year-old Moroccan. The Catalan regional government says all European police forces are now searching the continent for him. Authorities could not rule out that he had crossed into France, but have stepped up checks at Spain's border controls. They also raided more homes overnight in Ripoll, a town in the foothills of the Pyrenees close to France, where many of the suspects in a 12-strong cell thought to be behind the attack had lived. Those thought to be part of the suspected network have been arrested, shot by police or killed in an explosion at a house in Catalonia a day before Thursday's attack. Abu Yaqub is suspected of driving the van that ploughed into crowds on Las Ramblas, Barcelona's famous pedestrian street, last Thursday. Another attack hours later killed one person and injured several others in Cambrils, a seaside town south of the city. 5 suspects were subsequently killed by police in Cambrils. Abu Yaqub is thought to have abandoned the van after the attack on Las Ramblas. Today, a Spanish paper released closed-circuit TV footage of a man wearing a black and white shirt similar to the one Abu Yaqub wore when he was caught on a bank security camera the night before the attacks.
Elsewhere in the region, police in the French city of Marseille are investigating 2 incidents which saw one woman killed and another man injured. Police say the man was injured at a bus stop and the woman was killed at a separate bus stop. The 2 bus stops are 5 kilometers apart. French police say it's too early to blame the incident on terrorism, but given the times, it could not be excluded as a possible motive.
Still ahead in the news. An acting headmaster appointed for Hing Tak School in Tuen Mun. Philippine churches to ring bells. Welcome back. A board member of the Tuen Mun Primary School, which sacked its headmistress for inflating student numbers, has assured parents the move has fixed most of its problems. Hing Tak Primary School today appointed its acting principal as the search for a permanent head teacher begins. On Friday, the Hing Tak School Board, which includes 11 members appointed by the Education Bureau, voted to sack its headmistress Chan Jung-ping. It follows accusations that she had kept shadow students on the class enrollment list to maintain its government funding. One of those government-appointed board members told a radio show this morning, now that Chan had been dismissed, 95% of the school's problems had been solved. The remaining 5% of problems involved its finances. He highlighted issues that needed smoothing out, including internal conflict between teaching staff over promotions and recruitment that had not followed the proper procedures. Stephen Lui dismissed reports the former headmistress was planning to file a complaint over her dismissal to the Labour Department.
Before we had the meeting on the 18th of August, we actually consulted the legal department. We were told that we can go straight with the sacking.
A 12-year veteran of the school, Song Chuk Fan, will be at the helm until a permanent replacement is found when recruitment begins on Saturday. The board also assured staff members, some of whom had supported Chan, of a smooth transition.
I would like them not to be worried about, any sort of revenge will be taken against them. And we would adopt the sort of strategy of being empathetic, understanding. We'll also be forgiving them, as well as accepting them. So these sort of strategy, has been used before by myself in solving this sort of problem in school.
Lui also assured parents that there were enough students enrolled for the next term, and there was no need to transfer their kids as the school was not going to close down. A 75-year-old woman was today sentenced to 17 months in prison for running an illegal abortion business at her public housing flat. Her aide, a Chinese medicine practitioner who referred patients to her, was slapped with a 10-month jail term. Elmi Long with details.
It all happened at this public housing unit in Lam Tin, home of Li Shuk-fan. The 75-year-old carried out illegal abortion procedures in her living room. She claims to have around 30 years midwife experience on the mainland, but in Hong Kong, she's only worked as a cleaner at a clinic. The court heard Li's patients came from registered Chinese medicine practitioner Lo Wen-yi. For each referral, she pocketed over $1,000 from the $5,500 procedure, which she said takes 2 minutes. Both women were arrested during a police undercover operation in late 2014. Citing the views of a medical consultant, the judge said an inadequate setup with the lack of tools such as blood pressure devices could expose patients to potential brain damage. He also noted that using a pressure cooker to sterilize tools and operating in a massive hurry exposes patients to infection. For the charge of conspiracy to use an instrument with intent to procure a miscarriage, The woman who performed unlicensed abortion procedures got 17 months in prison. Her aide, 10 months in jail. The Family Planning Association of Hong Kong reminded the public to be aware of the high risks associated with termination of pregnancies. Elmi Long, TVB News.
Turning overseas again, a funeral yesterday for a Filipino man shot dead by police was the latest sign of rising anger over President Rodrigo Duterte's drug crackdown. Mourners wore T-shirts with the slogan, "Kill drugs, not people," as they carried the coffin of Leova Miranda to his grave. The 39-year-old was killed in what police said was a drug sting operation, but relatives say he was innocent. Support for Duterte and his anti-drug campaign remains strong, but a recent surge in killings is raising new questions. More than 2,500 people, many of them small-time drug users and dealers, have been killed since Duterte took office last year. Police say many were shot in self-defense, but human rights groups say most were killed by assassins operating with police backing or by police disguised as vigilantes. Meanwhile, a church leader says church bells will be rung every night for 3 months across his district to raise alarm over the killings.
Fans of the comedian Jerry Lewis gathered at his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame to bid goodbye to the legendary entertainer. He was 91. In a statement, his family said he died at his home of natural causes. He had been hospitalized for about 5 weeks, beginning in early June, for a urinary tract infection. Lewis rose to fame as the goofy foil to his sophisticated partner Dean Martin. At home, he was both loved and derided, while in France, he became a comic icon. The son of entertainers, Lewis became a star in the 1950s as Martin's comic sidekick in nightclubs, on television, and in 16 movies. At their height, they set off the kind of fan hysteria that once surrounded Frank Sinatra and the Beatles. Right, Tony, what's happening in sport tonight?
We've got a lot of tennis and
Great.
a bit of action from Mo